Okay. Yo, what is good, everyone? It is the godfather of gaming, the ageless wonder, the man Lincoln Clay, coming back at you with a graveyard video. It is almost 1:30 a.m. here on the eastern part of the country, or at least Eastern time. So I've been sleeping all day. I got out of work, still working 10-hour shifts. Came home, ate, took a nap, woke up at midnight to some news that I found a little bit disappointing, but not exactly shocking. As if you don't know by now, you will know by tomorrow that Sony and Major League Baseball have reached an agreement on a contract extension for Sony to retain the license to develop and distribute MLB The Show, but the game will extend to other platforms. Uh, Xbox definitely being one of them because they made a tweet taking a jab at Sony, as far as I'm concerned, and probably PC. So, um, how does it affect me? Um, as far as my personal entertainment goes, it doesn't affect me. But you know, as much as I'd like to get mad at this, I really can't because I think part of it probably was out of Sony's control. I mean, when you're dealing with entities like Major League Baseball, the National Football League, the National Basketball Association, and maybe the National Hockey League. These are all organizations that want to spread their brand out as far as possible. So, in the case of Major League Baseball, that probably what this came down to, that they probably wanted to extend their brand beyond the PlayStation, and I wouldn't be surprised if when they came to the table to talk about a new contract or something. I wouldn't be surprised if Major League Baseball kind of probably try to put a little bit of leverage on Sony by probably implying that they wanted to open the license back up to pretty much anyone who wanted to make a baseball game. That might have prompted Sony to say, "Hey, well, look, how about we do it this way? Um, we'll extend the game to other platforms, but we still want to be the only distributor of the game." So, um, 1 second here. Um, when I first got introduced to MLB The Show, it was during the PS3 generation. Um, Anybody that's followed my channel from the beginning knows that when I first when the 360 PS3 generation first started, I was already mad at Sony to begin with because I felt like they had manufactured a false shortage of the PS2 to drive up demand. And so when the PS3 came out, I felt like it was another slap in the face to consumers to price this console at $600. I thought it was a slap in the face, and I thought it was a super arrogant move on Sony's part. So I actually wanted Xbox to bury them. I wanted Xbox to put them out of business. And the PS3 got off to a bad start a few years later. Well, a couple years later, however long it took. After making some different moves, the PS3 started becoming affordable. So one of my friends that lived in Rhode Island, who's a huge baseball fan, contacted me and said, "Man, you got to get a PlayStation." And I'm like, "For what?" And he was like, "Man, they got some good games over there." And he said that MLB The Show being one of them, which I was a big baseball fan, but see, I wasn't motivated to get MLB The Show because at the time that he was telling me this, it wasn't the only baseball game out there. 2K Baseball was out there, and I was more than happy with 2K Baseball. I mean, going all the way back to the Dreamcast days, I loved 2K Baseball for a while. I mean, back on the Dreamcast, Sega had their own fleet of sports franchises. They had NFL 2K, NBA 2K, uh, MLB 2K. They had NHL 2K. They even had tennis 2K for a while, and they had college basketball 2K, which I think was at the time called NCAA 2K. And when Sega went third party, all those franchises moved over to the Xbox. At least NFL 2K, NBA 2K, and NHL 2K, and NCAA, the college basketball 2K. All those moved over to the Xbox. So I think by then Tennis 2K was dropped. So because of that, I felt no need to try MLB The Show, and I felt no need to buy a PlayStation. But he said, hey, for me, try it. My friend said, give it a try for me. And so by then I think the 20 gig PS3, no, it was a 40 gig. It was a 40 gig PS3. It was one of the older models that still looked like a big refrigerator. But it came down to $400, so I went and bought one. And so he made me a deal. My friend made me a deal. He said, I'll pick up a PS3 and pick up MLB The Show. And he says, if you don't like it, you can take your PS3 back to get your money back. And he said, and to avoid you taking a hit, he was like, I'll pay you for the game if you don't like it. I said, okay, fair enough. I got nothing to lose. So I bought a PS3 and I played MLB The Show. And I instantly felt like the graphics were better than the 2K baseball. Instantly. But I was still having to learn the controls of the game. So a part of me was like, nah, I was ready to jump back over to 2K. But, I gave it the college try and kept plugging away at it. And the more I played it, the more I liked it. And then the rest is history. And I loved MLB. Eventually, I came to love MLB The Show so much that MLB The Show was the only game where I would take a vacation day and take the day off of work to play it. No other game. So I would find out what the release date was going to be for MLB The Show, and I would put in a vacation day to have that day off. And before, digital distribution became big, when physical copies was still big, I would find out who's going to have a midnight release, and I would go to that retailer and pick it up at midnight. I would come home and I would play the game. And I've absolutely loved MLB The Show. I still love it to this day, even though I'm primarily a VR guy. So, but I think, now getting to the contract part of it, I think I'm almost certain that during the PS3 360 generation, the agreements that were in place back then was that Sony was the only first party entity. They had exclusive first party rights, meaning that they were the only first party that could make a baseball game, but third parties could still make a baseball game. And I think that's one of the reasons why you didn't see it on the Xbox during the 360 generation. But by then, it really didn't matter because Microsoft had stopped making all their sports games, because when the original Xbox came out, Microsoft had their own lineup of sports games. They had Inside Blitz, which was their football game that had Peyton Manning on the cover. They had Inside Drive, which was their basketball game that had Vince Carter on the cover. They had Inside Pitch. I can't remember who was on the cover of that. And I remember that inside pitch because now the commentary on that inside pitch was dog shit, but I played it because it was the first baseball game that I had ever played online. And I remember some shit was going on with Barry Bonds back then that he was not appearing on a lot of these baseball games that was out back then. So on Microsoft's version, inside pitch, whenever Barry Bonds came to bat, his name was Mighty Joe Young. But it was the first time I had ever played a baseball game online, and then with the game chat that made it all the more fun. So, but yeah, Microsoft had their own lineup of games during the first generation Xbox. Like I said, they had their own football game, their own basketball game, their own baseball game. I can't remember if they had a hockey game, and I can't remember if they had a tennis game. But I also know they had their own golf game called Links, and that was like when they didn't follow that game up. That was like one of the first things that really pissed me off about Microsoft because Links was an excellent golf game. In fact, to this very day, I still believe that Links was the best golf game I ever played. A Microsoft exclusive, Links, that had Sergio Garcia on the cover. Um, that game was such a great golf game that the friends that I was hanging around at the time, um, we would play each other online, and we would even bet each other online. Um, Cause like we played our own version of the skins game, and when all was said and done, it was like whoever won the money would get paid when we all meet up on the weekend or something. But Lynx was a great game, still to this day. I think it was better than Tiger Woods. And I was seriously disappointed when Microsoft didn't come back with another Lynx. I think they only made it that 1 year. So yeah, the golden days of Xbox, the first generation Xbox, they had their own exclusives. They had a lot of games. They had a lot of good games back then. Um, so getting back to this MLB The Show thing, again, Sony had the exclusive first party rights, but third party entities were still allowed to make a game. So that's why you had MLB The Show and MLB 2K out there. And I think as I started to fall more and more in love with MLB The Show, I think MLB 2K was starting to slip in its quality. I think they were starting to turn the game more arcadey, and I think in an effort to try to get more people on board with the game, they made it really easy to hit home runs in the game. And so, that pretty much iced it for me. I didn't want to play it anymore because, baseball is a defensive sport, and baseball is the only sport where the defense has the ball. So, but truth be told, neither one of them was selling a lot of games, MLB The Show or MLB 2K, and I think that's why MLB 2K. I think that's why 2K stopped making the baseball game because it wasn't selling. Because by the time they stopped making MLB 2K, the only games they had left in terms of the sport franchises were NBA 2K and MLB 2K, because they stopped making NFL 2K because we already knew about the license that EA had with the NFL. They stopped making college basketball 2K way before this shit went to court about college athletes trying to get paid to appear on video games. And same thing, the NHL hockey, they stopped making that. Now, I think when Sega had those sports lineups, I think those were the best sport franchises out there. Because when Sega owned those sports franchises, again, you had MLB The Show, not MLB The Show, yeah, MLB 2K, NBA 2K, NFL 2K, Tennis 2K, NHL 2K, Tennis 2K. You had six sport franchises, and all of them were good games because I tried them all at one point or another on the Dreamcast. And the NHL 2K, the hockey game, was an excellent hockey game. That was basically every year back then. All my sports games were the 2K games when they were still under Sega. I bought NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, and my Xbox friends that I were hanging out at the time, they absolutely loved college basketball 2K. So to play with them, I bought that every year. So I was buying those four franchises every year. Now the NHL 2K, oh, let me shut this phone up. The round table's going off right now in the chat, and then my friend in Rhode Island that actually introduced me to MLB The Show. I'm talking to him direct message on Facebook, so I got to get back with him too. But I think I was talking about the NHL 2K was an excellent game. That by far was the best hockey game I ever played. The only problem that the only thing that made EA's version better, NHL whatever the year was, the only thing they had over 2K's version of the hockey game was the fighting, because the EA version had fighting in it, whereas the 2K didn't. And I think the last couple of years that they made the hockey franchise, 2K had caught on to, people like to see fighting in hockey. So they had finally added fighting in the hockey game. But I think by then it was too little too late. But the same thing, the MLB 2K was a great franchise until they got desperate to try to sell more copies and started making it more arcadey. Um, like I said, the college basketball 2K, I think they just outright stopped making those. So now, getting to where we're at right now, I think there was definitely some give and take on both parts, and I'm led to believe that Major League Baseball probably tried to throw that out there at Sony, that they were probably looking to expand that license to other to other publishers, and that might have prompted Sony to say, okay, look, let us keep the licensing rights to this game, and we'll distribute it on other platforms. So I'm under the impression that if Sony would have said no, it's got to stay on our platform or no deal, I'm willing to bet that they probably would have taken it. I wouldn't have been surprised if they would have went to somebody like 2K and he, paid them or offered them a super duper discount to make another baseball game. But who knows how it went? But now I think I wouldn't be surprised with this contract extension if they have a Madden type contract in place where they are the only people who can make a baseball game, period. During the PS3 360 generation, they weren't the only ones who could make a baseball game, but they were the only first party who could make a baseball game. Third parties could still make a baseball game, but I wouldn't be surprised with this extension that they just agreed to. I'm willing to believe that Sony's probably the only person who can make a baseball game, period. So even if you see MLB the Show on other platforms like the Xbox and PC, you're probably still going to see the Sony name on the on the cover somewhere. So so where does this leave me going forward? Um, well, moving forward, well, the game is supposed to come to other platforms in 2021. There's absolutely no reason for me to buy this game on the Xbox. We know the deal with the Xbox section. They don't buy games, and truth be told, sometimes it can be a struggle to find a game on the PlayStation on MLB The Show. So I expect at times it will be even more of a struggle to find a game, to find a live opponent on the Xbox side, because the game's still going to sell more on the PlayStation even if it goes to the Xbox and PC. I mean, truth be told, I think the additional people who will buy this game on the Xbox and on the PC, I think is going to be so minuscule that I'm not even sure it was worth it for MLB to possibly force Sony's hand into this position, because that's the way I believe it probably went down. I'm led to believe that if it was still up to Sony, this game would remain exclusively on the PlayStation, but I'm led to believe that MLB probably forced their hand a little bit because they probably wanted to get this game out to as many people as possible. Not maybe this game in particular, but to open the license up to other people to make baseball games so they can get baseball as a whole into the hands of as many people as possible. Because I think there's still a couple of bullshit baseball games out there. I think there's like a little kitty ass Lego looking RBI baseball or something on the Xbox. I think it's on the Xbox and the PlayStation, to tell you the truth. But it looks like a baseball game for kids. But it is using, I think it is using all the major league teams on there. So, but so the question is, moving forward, I think since Sony is still going to be able to develop and distribute this game, will they do some shit where they deliberately make the best looking version of this game on the PlayStation to motivate you to buy it there? Will they add like coins, cards, all that kind of stuff in franchise mode? Will they add extra stuff to try to motivate you to buy it on the PlayStation? You know, like those Madden coins and all that kind of stuff. Will they give you a bigger package to buy them on the PlayStation? But I think for me, I would plan to buy this game on the PlayStation anyway. Although I will say that if the game were to come to PC, it would be interesting to see if Sony would try to make people have a PlayStation Plus subscription in order to play this game online on PC. So if they don't require you to have a PlayStation Plus subscription to play this game on PC, then that would be the platform of choice to play this game on, would be PC. So the only other motivating factor that would make me choose the PlayStation to play MLB The Show is if they do what I want them to do in the first place, and that is to make this game fully playable in VR. Because the fact of the matter is, That's one of the reasons why this game going to other platforms don't affect me that much. Because truth be told, 95% of the reason I'll go a little bit lower. 90% of the reason for me even getting a PS5 is because of the VR. Because of what I think Sony's long-term vision is for VR. I think over the long haul, I think they're still going to deliver some great games, and I think with the power of the PS5, they're going to deliver some high quality AAA type experiences on the PS5. So that's my biggest reason for wanting a PS5. Now the other 10% of wanting a PS5 is because of their exclusives like MLB The Show and whatever other exclusives that they may put out down the line. You know, possibly another Uncharted somewhere down the line years from now, another Last of Us somewhere down the line, um, another Killzone. You know, them possibly bringing SOCOM back, that kind of stuff. So the bottom line is that 90% of me wanting a PS5 is for the VR aspect of it, and then the other 10% is because of the Sony exclusives. It's definitely not third party because you can play them anywhere. So the Sony exclusives, as well as, you might as well say exclusives across the board, um, because their VR exclusives is going to be the reason for me wanting to get a PS5. Um, the hopes of being able to play MLB The Show a couple years from now, fully playable in VR. Um, you know, the hopes that when the new GT Sport comes out, hopefully we'll get that VR multiplayer that we've been wanting ever since this game first came out. Those, you know, you know, that's my reason for wanting a PS5. So when you stop and look at it, it's exclusives across the board. The PlayStation VR exclusives, as well as their flat screen exclusives, are my reasons for wanting a PS5. So now, as far as MLB The Show goes, now that the game is going to go to different platforms, so I'll put it this way: if MLB The Show goes to PC, my only reason for wanting to play this game on the PlayStation would be if they if they had some sort of VR mode for the game. And I think that's going to have to motivate Sony to add a VR mode to the game because um, to their hardcore fans, that's probably going to be, I think that's going to be key in people purchasing the game on the PlayStation. Because, you know, now that the game is going to come to the Xbox come 2021, you're going to sell a few more copies. Yeah, a few people over on the Xbox are going to buy it, but every one of those people that buys it on the Xbox, those may be potential people who may not have a PS5 that might have been willing to, or any PlayStation console that might have been willing to buy a console in order to play the game. So yeah, it's a little bit disappointing because when you think of PlayStation, MLB The Show is one of the first things that would always pop in my head because that's been, I think MLB The Show, I think that's been around, 15, 20 years on the PlayStation flat platform. Um, and I think when you really stop and think about it, it is their only sports franchise. No, in the GT Sports series. GT Sport and MLB The Show, I think there are Sony's only sport franchises. So yeah, even though I'm not exactly surprised because you know, again, dealing with franchises um, entities like the Major League Baseball, the NFL, the NBA, they want to try to cast that net as wide as possible. So let's say we had a situation where um, 2K had an exclusive license to be the only distributor of any kind of NBA game. I think it would have only been a matter of time before the NBA came to them and said, "We're looking to expand, so we want to, open this license up to other publishers." And I think that would have forced 2K's hand to say, "Okay, how about we give you X, Y, and Z in order to keep the exclusive rights?" I think this is, no different. In the case of EA, they went and dumped a boatload of cash at the NFL's front door. So I think the only way Sony could have kept this game on the PlayStation exclusively is they probably would have had to dump EA kind of money at MLB's front door. Or I think that if entities like 2K was still making a baseball game, a Major League Baseball game, I think it might have been a little bit easier for Sony to keep that license, to keep it exclusively on the PlayStation, because the brand is still getting out there through a third party. But I think because Sony's the only publisher that's making like a high quality, high budget baseball game, I think MLB, the Major League Baseball Commission, probably forced their hand a little bit. I wouldn't even be surprised if they bluffed them if they possibly told them that we're looking to expand and open this license up to other publishers. So I wouldn't be surprised if they forced Sony's hand a little bit and maybe even bluffed them along the way. But so I guess I still want to try to see the bright side of this. This is still going to be a Sony made product, so it's still going to have that Sony quality. If the game doesn't come to PC, I'll still buy it on the PlayStation. That's still going to be my console of choice to play it on, because I do believe that the game is going to run better on the PlayStation, because we know Sony has talented developers. But I would like to think that Scarlet won't be a piece of junk, so it'll probably run good on Scarlet too. But again, for me, for my personal entertainment, it doesn't really change a thing. Because I'm still wanting this game to be fully playable in VR. I mean, that would be a dream come true, for this game to be fully playable in VR. So that's what I'm still hoping for. But if it happens, in my opinion, it won't happen until 2021. If it does happen, at the earliest, because by the time MLB The Show 21 comes out, by then, the PS5 will probably have been out for about 6 months by then. So, but there are those who are concerned about what does this mean for Sony as a company. People are wondering if Sony's going to take the Microsoft route and start moving in that third-party direction. I guess I'll have to wait and see, because Sony doesn't own Major League Baseball. So it was only so much of that situation that they could control. Now, this rumor about Horizon Zero Dawn possibly going to PC, that's going to be all Sony. That decision would probably be all Sony. So if games like The Last of Us, the Uncharted's, the Horizon Zero Dawns, the Kill Zones, those kind of games, if those games make it to PC or even Xbox, then the writing is on the wall. They're going third party, and that would be the end of the PlayStation brand as we know it. If they were to do something like that, there won't be a PlayStation 6 as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, it's disappointing to know that MLB The Show isn't going to remain on the PlayStation console, the PlayStation platform exclusively. But I think they only had so much control over that situation. I mean, um, if you want me to be truthful, given how greedy MLB The Show is, I mean, not MLB The Show, but Major League Baseball in general, given how greedy they are, if they force Sony into this position, I'm surprised they didn't do it to Sony sooner. Because they've made some moves themselves to try to generate more revenue through TV ratings. Um, During that steroid phase where everybody was on steroids, the Major League Baseball was allowing that to happen. Who didn't tune in to baseball when you had Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa chasing after Babe Ruth's record? And both Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire broke those records, but both of them were on steroids. And then Barry Bonds came along and broke those records and still holds the records for the most home runs hit in the season. I think he hit 71 home runs. It's either 71 or 74. I can't remember, but he was on steroids. And Major League Baseball was allowing it. I think, when players was getting busted with cork bats, they had to do something about that because people that was getting busted with cork bats, there was like their bats were exploding right there on the field. They go hit a ball, a 90-mile-an-hour pitch with a cork bat. The center of the bat has been drilled out and been filled up with cork or super balls or whatever they choose to put inside the bat. So that bat's eventually going to explode once you swing at a 90-mile-an-hour baseball so many times. So believe me, with that kind of shit happening right there on camera, they were having to do something about that. But, steroids, yeah, And then the thing about it was, I think as part of the collective bargaining agreement, MLB could not test players for steroids. I think either it went one of two ways. They could not test players for steroids, or if they tested them for steroids, they could not make the results public. But I think they couldn't test them because a lot of players that were suspected of being on steroids back then, when all those home runs were being hit all over the place, they were daring MLB to, I'm not on steroids, and if they want to test me, blah blah blah, they're welcome to test me, blah blah blah. When they knew there was a contract in place that did not allow MLB to test the players for steroids, but the Major League Baseball wasn't going to test them for steroids anyway, because when they were hitting the home runs all over the place, that was generating more views. I had Jose Canseco, Rafael Palmeiro, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds. The list of players that was on steroids goes on and on and on. And I think a lot of them that weren't on steroids had cork bats. Albert Bell being one of them. He got busted with a cork bat. I guess it was in his locker when he played for the Cleveland Indians, and he came up with a dumbass excuse talking about somebody climbed into their locker room through the ceiling and put that bat in his locker. Oh my goodness. So yeah, in the NBA, all these organizations make different moves to generate more views, and they seem to think one of the ways to generate more views is through more offense. Me, I'm a defensive minded person. I love to see a baseball game where the score is 1-zip because that means that was some great pitching. Um, and that probably means the pitcher that lost the game probably only made one mistake, otherwise pitched a great game. Um, a football game, I love to see a game where the score is 10-3. I love to see some defense. The thing about games where there's a lot of defense involved, the team that makes the least mistakes usually wins. So I love defensive battles. Um, NBA, the Bad Boys, the Detroit Pistons, synonymous with defense. I think it was because of the Bad Boys that the NBA changed some of their rules. They changed the hand checking rules. They changed the arm bar. That you used to be able to put a hand right on your opponent's back as they try to back you down, but then they changed it and forced you to have to put an arm bar on them. They moved the 3-point line closer in order to try to generate more offense, but what they ultimately did was play right into the defense's hands. By moving the 3-point line closer, it allowed defenses to have to travel a shorter distance to get to the shooter to contest the shot. So, to me, that actually backfired a little bit. But then, they started creating all kinds of other rule changes to try to generate more offense. Because I can't stand to see an NBA shootout, because all it looks like people was just standing around shooting. I want to see hard defense, and I want to see offenses have to work for their shots. I want them to have to run a play to break a defense down to free someone up. In the case of the NFL, to try to generate more offense, I think one of the things they did was called the one chuck rule, where at the line of scrimmage, a defensive back can only bump a wide receiver once. After that, after 5 yards, you can't touch him anymore. With the offensive lines used to have to get up on the line of scrimmage, but they allowed offensive lines to go into a formation that looks like a V, and the purpose of that V was to allow blockers to have a better advantage against pass rushers, so they would be able to hold their blocks better, thus giving the quarterback more time to throw the pass, and protect him longer. So all these sports entities have tried to generate more revenue through higher TV ratings. So they're constantly looking for ways to try to generate more revenue in one form or another. So with that being said, it was probably only a matter of time before the MLB would have gotten to Sony and tried to force some kind of deal with them. I don't know. I'm just under the impression that I think the Major League Baseball probably came to Sony and tried to outright bluff them and probably try to tell them we're looking to expand this license and open it up and let's just let it be a third-party license. And maybe Sony was the ones who was like, wait a minute. Here's what we'll do. We'll do this. We'll do X, Y, and Z. So I think it might be a little bit unfair for people to get upset at Sony to outright be furious with them, because I think this is a situation that's that was probably out of their hands. Yes, it's disappointing because, matter of fact, this generation, when I decided to buy the PS4 and the Xbox One, I was trying to decide which one I was going to buy, because I wasn't going to buy both of them at the same time, because the Xbox One was $500 and the PS4 was $400. So what I was having to decide was, do I get an Xbox One to play with my friends? Because they made it clear, my Xbox friends over there made it clear. They said, if you want to play with us, you're going to have to get an Xbox. We're not getting PlayStations. So I had to decide, do I get an Xbox One to be able to play with my friends? Or do I get a PS4 because I want to play MLB The Show? and that was a I was wanting the PS4 a little bit more, but I also wanted to play with my friends too on the Xbox because I have been friends with these dudes damn near, I've been 15, 20 years I've been friends with these dudes. So I wanted to play with them too. But then, when Donnie D jumped up there and did made his magical statement, it made it a little bit easier for me. So that was the icing on the cake, and that's what made me go get a PS4. And I had a PS4. I think probably 6 months, maybe a year before I eventually got my first Xbox One. So yeah, again, it's a little bit disappointing, but MLB The Show has always been one of the biggest reasons why I had PlayStations. And again, MLB The Show was the only game, not just a sports title. Excuse me. MLB The Show was the only game that I have ever taken time off of work for. Like I said, I would find out what the exact release date of the game was going to be, and then I put in for a vacation day for that day. So we're still going to get the same quality that Sony's given us out of this game. We're still going to get the same attention to detail. The game's not going to be watered down. I don't think the game's performance is going to be compromised. One thing that will be interesting to see in 2021 is, will this game be cross-played now that it'll be on other platforms? But that's probably the one possibly unfortunate part of this, is that if this game comes to PC, if it goes to PC and it's crossplay, then that's probably where I'll get it at. So I don't know. I hope Sony doesn't go that Microsoft route, because if Sony decides to go that Microsoft route, there's going to be a big boom in PC purchases. Because you go to PC, you're going to get the best version of the game, and you may not have to pay for a subscription to play these games online. So, but this game in particular, like I said, to put it in simple terms, can't panic about this game. It is what it is. I think it was a little bit out of their hands, out of Sony's hands. If their other first-party franchises come to PC, then yeah, okay, then that's something to be on the lookout for. But I think that's going to do it for me. Oh my God, it's already after 2 o'clock. I did not plan to be on to run this video this long. So if you made it this far, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And yeah, even though I'm not terribly shocked that this happened, it still feels a little bit gut wrenching. It still feels like it's a little bit of a shock. Even though I'm not exactly surprised this happened. I mean, when I stop and look at the big picture of this thing, knowing what kind of entities the MLB, the NFL, NBA are, it's a little bit surprising that something like this didn't happen sooner. So that's gonna do it for me. Thanks for watching, everybody. Like, comment, share, all that good stuff. Let me see here. Today is officially December 10th. As far as games goes, I think Boneworks releases today on Steam. That is a Valve game, and I think this is the first game that's supposed to take advantage of the Valve Knuckles controllers. It's supposed to be a very interactive game. The game looks like a tech demo to me, but I'm hearing that it does have a little bit of a campaign. So I'm waiting to hear what the reviews are, player reviews, not journalists, video game journalists. I can give two shits less what they think about it. But we'll see how that goes. But again, today is December 10th. So I think I officially have 3 days in a wake up before I'm out of YouTube jail. So Saturday's probably going to be the target date. So I'm going to expect to be able to start streaming live come this Saturday. I'm hoping so, that because it should have been 90 days by then. And so depending on what kind of news pops up this week, that'll probably be the next time you guys see me is this Saturday, and hopefully it'll be live. Hopefully you guys enjoy me, and I look forward to talking to all of you again because I really missed you guys. I really missed interacting with you guys, having conversations with you guys. You guys have carried on a lot of the streams that I've had. You guys have carried a lot of those streams on because a lot of times I've only had like 15, 20 minutes worth of stuff to talk about. But your input from the comment section usually kept these streams going. And I really, again, miss interacting with you guys. So I look forward to talking to you guys again when I go live. And I want to thank everybody again who's supported my channel, during this time that I've been on YouTube. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm thankful for you all. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and boogie on out of here. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Yeah, this was a really lengthful video, but still, thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys later. We'll see you later. Deuces.